Yes, welcome to the Design, Research and Innovation Festival 2020. Welcome to Drive Water. Woo! Yes, for the 7th year in a row, ClickNL and Design United bring you state-of-the-art knowledge and innovation. And this year, more than ever, we focus on societal challenges. Yes, Holland, a small country of rivers, dikes and the ocean. We live in one big delta. So we've got plenty of water, don't we? Well, apparently not. During the summer, we are pressed not to use the water, to fill our swimming pools and our jacuzzis. But on the other hand, the streets are flooded by heavy summer rainstorms. So what is our relationship with water? And why is water such a complicated issue? That is why we will discuss water in the third day of Drive 2020. Welcome, welcome, people back home, but also welcome to our audience here live at the Evenaar. And Marjolein, of course, because you are our Zoom moderator today. And then we are actually wondering who is watching back home, but also who is watching here live at the Evenaar. So maybe you can ask the people back home. I will start with the live audience here, because who of you is a creative professional? Do we have creative professionals in the hall? Okay, we got some, yes. And who of you is a researcher? We also have researchers. So maybe it's nice, I don't know, Sven, where you are, but can you maybe, the lady over here, can you tell us what is your relationship with water? The microphone is coming. Do you think we have plenty of it, or?
Well, I think water actually is everywhere in the Netherlands. It plays a role everywhere, whether it's in industry or we have the surface water in our country, or it is how I actually deal with water as a citizen. So it is extremely important for us to understand it and to develop it as well.
Yes.
Because the water level is of course rising, but there is still a lack of water in the world for a lot of people to use in their households. So there is so much coming at us in the future that we need to take note of, and we'd better be prepared.
Okay, and do you think that we take enough care of water?
Well, if the Netherlands doesn't take care of the water, then I do not know what we're doing, so we should. And do we take enough care of it? I think we have a very good start. We have a good starting position, but we should never stop progressing on it.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. And I thought the creative professionals were over here, sitting over here. Can you raise your hands again? Yeah, you are also our speakers. Yes, so we will hear what the creative professionals think of water. Are there also some governmental professionals with us? No? Oh, you are? Okay. So what is maybe can we ask you a question? Because what is your relationship with water as a professional, governmental professional? Well, yeah, Mike is coming.
I work at Waterschap de Dommel, and we are responsible for taking care of the water, as well as the clearing of the water as all the waters around us. So it's daily topic, of course.
Daily topic. And do you also think, or what is your opinion about taking care of water? Are we taking enough care of water?
Well, I think there is something changing in the perception. We have the history of having to control the waters for our own purposes. And we can clearly see that that mentality is not enough anymore to solve the problems we face today. So we have to redecide who we are as a water authority and what our role is in taking care of the water. So okay. That's what I'm trying to help with.
Yes, yeah. Well, great having you also here live at the Evenaar. Because Marjolein, who is watching?
Well, we have some creative professionals, some designers who work with water and some researchers. And there's also some people from the government online, but we also have I think we have an entrepreneur who works in diverse projects to bring knowledge about the future and the changes needed. So there's quite some different people online.
Okay, so a mixed audience.
Yes, definitely.
Welcome. And what is their opinion about the poll?
So I asked them, what is your relationship with water? And to be honest, I'm like, yeah, we have plenty of water. I mean, yeah, I know in nature we have a drought, but at home I'm like, yeah, I love my showering and my cooking. But the people at home, they say they are very aware of the issue and even adjust their diets and their shoppings.
Okay.
So that's quite interesting.
Okay, and does somebody wants to tell us how they adjust?
I'll ask him. Yes, good point.
Because are you adjusting actually your diet and the way you behave? Yes, can I ask you, how are you doing that? Sven, are you still here with us? There you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I am director of the TKE Water Technology, so in my daily life I'm busy with water. But in my personal life I'm also busy with water, because when you have a garden you want to make sure that the plants do not die during a drought. So what I do, I collect the rainwater in the barrels. So I have plenty of water during the summertime, for instance.
Okay, wonderful. So you're very conscious
Yes.
about using water. Thank you, actually. And Marjolein, does somebody wants to be in our show live?
Not this moment. I think
Not this
we're
moment.
all, no.
Okay, they still have to warm up. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we got someone else who is actually live at the moment because we want to talk about what's happening now in the world of design. And the branch organization for architects, the BNA, recently executed a design study, integral design and step-by-step plans for climate-proof buildings. And Jutta Hinterleitner, yes, you are in the show, in Drive 2020. Welcome. You are an architect and program manager of this study. So what can you tell us very shortly about this design study?
Yeah, just very shortly. We, in 2019 and the beginning of this year, worked on this research by design program called The Building as a Water Machine. We did this together with the TU Delft. Hans de Boer is also in the program now, with 3 municipalities, 3 housing corporations, and 5 multidisciplinary design teams. We looked at the possibilities to use rainwater as an asset that helps to improve the quality of the social housing and its surroundings. So what we did is we developed 5 different plans that show how this can be done, how a building can become a rain processing water machine, basically. Tom Bergevoet, he is with you today also. He will tell you about one of these water machine plans. And the publication that you see in the background shows the other plans as well. So there is more in-depth study possible on this topic.
Well, thank you very, very much for your short introduction, because Tom Bergevoet, he is with us here live. He's our first speaker. He's an architect at Temp Architecture, and he worked on one of the projects of the BNA study together with Royal Haskoning, and he will tell us more about how to make our social housing stock climate-proof and a real water machine.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. My name is Tom Bergevoet. I'm an architect, and I will tell you today about the building as a water machine. What we expect from our buildings is that they protect us from the rain, that they give us a dry interior and provide us with clean and fresh water from the tap. Only few of us realize that these 2 types of water are totally independent, and I think it's just a matter of sustainability to try and integrate these 2 flows of water. Tap water, which is clean and which costs a lot of energy to produce. If you can reduce that by introducing rainwater in your household, you contribute to sustainability. We did this study how to make a water machine from a building in the north of Amsterdam. There is 4 social housing buildings there from 1968, and they contain around 170 houses. We did it together with Royal Haskoning, with their water experts, and IJmere is the owner of these buildings. And as I said, there's 4 of these buildings, and the apartments are organized around staircases, and there's no elevators at the moment. And we developed 3 scenarios, actually. I begin now with the smallest scenario, which is the least ambition, but is the easiest to implement. What we propose is to improve the insulation on the roofs, and by doing that, we can manipulate the flow of water to water tanks that are positioned on top of the staircases. And by doing that, on every floor, there can be installed a water tap that can be used by the inhabitants, and in that way we stimulate them to to make greenery in their houses and on their balconies. The water that is not used flows to a so-called rain garden on the ground floor in the public realm, and from this rain garden, green is growing. This is the existing building. This is how green grows on top of the facades, and in that way the so-called heat stress in the streets can be reduced. And on the back side you see how green can also protect us from sunlight and make the interior climate better. In this way we can reduce the tap water with 6%. So that, I would say, is a good start. The model medium is a bit more ambitious. We take away the vertical staircases and replace them by galleries with connected to elevators. And by having these vertical gaps in the building volume, we can make vertical gardens. And we put a water buffer on top of the building, a so-called green-blue roof, and we add another story with apartments to that contributes to the business case. And in this way, rainwater can flow from the roof through the vertical gardens to a tank which is organized, positioned on ground floor again. And the rainwater can very well be used for the ventilation of the houses. Rainwater doesn't have chalk in it, and in that way it can be used for ventilation machines without demolishing them easily. So the rainwater goes to the vertical gardens to a tank on ground floor, and from there water can be used for flushing the toilets and to encourage inhabitants to grow their greenery on balconies and in their interior. The water that is not used by inhabitants flows to a so-called wadi in the public realm again, and also rainwater which is on the streets, which is too much there, can also flow to this wadi, and on this way the building can also contribute to the floodings, the little floodings that sometimes appear on the street when there's heavy rains. And this is how the existing building looks now, and this is how it will look in scenario medium. If we go to scenario, there are some more images of scenario medium. This is the back side where we also add some more balconies to encourage being outside and growing plants for the inhabitants. In this way we reduce the use of tap water with 50%, which is quite a lot, I think. If we go to model large, then we say, okay, let's get rid of these old-dated existing buildings. Let's make new buildings and make them as much as possible rainproof. And we make them out of wood, because wood has the natural ability to make the humidity in our interiors better. So the humidity, the wood material can make a good balance there. Here you see those new buildings, and they are organized around a collective garden, and in that collective garden there are some water buffers, water tanks, that also have a kind of landscape quality. And there's the first water buffer contains rainwater from the roof, which is the most clean. So there's the most possibilities with that. There's another water buffer that collects rainwater from the streets, which is dirty. You have to clean that to go to the third water buffer, which contains water that can also be used in the interior. So the water with the with the best quality, you can use that for showering. And we are not used to that in the Netherlands, but it's actually quite well possible, and also for laundry. So this would be something that we, as Dutch people, have to get used to improve the quality of our water system. This water that is used can come back to tank number 2 with the so-called grey water, and that can be reused again to flush the toilets and for our the green in the buildings. And in that way, the building can look like this. It's a building for families. Also, the existing buildings now are used for families. And so we made a lot of balconies too, because we think outside space is for an apartment these days very important to stay healthy. Because of the reuse of rainwater in this little water system, we can come to a reduction of 85% of the tap water, which is, I think, quite a lot. Why is it not 100%? Because the production of really good drink water is quite expensive, and it's better to do that on a bigger scale and organize it in a good way. So 100% reduction of tap water, I think, is not reasonable, but of course there's techniques that make this possible. And this is how this water-loving community might look like in the end. This is, in short, the presentation that we did of the project, the research that we did together with Royal Haskoning. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes, give him a big hand. Join me here at the table, please, because I can imagine that there are a lot of questions from our audience back home, but also from the people here live at the Effenaar. So if you have any questions, ask them to Marjolein, and also for the people here live, will come with a microphone. But first of all, Tom, very inspiring. Lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
It really looks great, especially because it are old houses and old flat.
Yeah.
How do you think how are the people reacting who are living there?
Yeah, they should get used to this.
But are they happy with it? What do you think? Is it an improvement for their life as well?
As long as they don't notice, I would say, they don't mind. Social housing, so sometimes people are a bit less. They already have some kind of.
They got enough problems maybe on their head, so they don't really feel up for this.
So the client, the owner of the building said, please, guys, very nice, all these plans, but don't expect too much from these people. But I think when you explain why this is a good idea to these people, and that they can contribute with their own house to sustainability, then I can imagine they're happy to join this project.
Because I feel kind of hesitation. Isn't it also an improvement for their life or for their quality of life, or is it more? Yeah, we have to do this.
What is good to mention, especially in this area, there is quite some water problems with heavy rains. And these people also know that. And when you tell them that they contribute to that problem by using this water themselves in the houses, then I think they will be happy to join. But once more, we also had a roof garden at a certain moment in the plan, and the client said, please don't expect too much from these people. They might not use it. So also, so that's why.
And is that true, or is that like a prejudice?
I don't know. Yeah, we have to see. We have to see. So that's why also when the tanks are full, there's also always the possibility to let the water go away in a good way, in a natural way. If not all the water is used by the inhabitants, then the water can easily go away to let's say our water system, but it goes slower than normally, which is also already quite good.
Yeah.
Because
I can also imagine that, I don't know if you've done research, what the opinion is, what they think of water, because I can imagine that they think, okay, tap water is like clean water and rainwater is dirty water.
Yeah.
So why is dirty water actually flushing my toilet?
Yeah. Well, I think toilets, people will easily understand that you can also do that with rainwater, but doing your laundry with rainwater is quite something. I think we all have to tell each other, we have to make each other aware of the fact that this is a possibility. And this is a good way to contribute to make our society more sustainable.
Yeah. But is
And
rainwater dirty water, or is it actually
no,
clean water?
it's very clean.
Yes.
As soon as it falls on the streets, it's dirty. Because there's cars driving, there might be oil, so you don't know anymore what the quality of the water is. But as long as it comes from the sky, it's pretty clean.
Yes.
And you can do lots of things with it.
And as an architect, do you also feel responsible for that mind shift, or is it only about designing a beautiful building, a technical?
Of course, I think we have to prove that this works with good design. And we have to contribute to good examples, and people should tell each other about these good examples, and in that way we can contribute to a mind shift. Yeah. So as designers, I think we can take a very important role to make this happen.
Yes, and you also see that that designers feel responsible also for that mind shift.
There's a
creating that
lot of
mind shift.
designers that want to contribute to this. Yes, definitely. And we need to find the right clients.
Yes, yes. And what do you need actually for making that transition? Do you need extra help, or do you need different disciplines joining a project like this?
Well, the technical knowledge that Royal Haskoning gave us made this project possible. Yeah, definitely.
The technical knowledge
and what was interesting to see is that there's a lot of easy and proven techniques available to make this happen already. So it's not highbrow.
No, so technically speaking, it's possible, and you're actually already are showing us.
Yeah.
Let's see if there are any questions. Marjolein, first of all, the people back home.
Yes, I just got a great question from a person back home who was asking whether you would incorporate wind and sunshine as well in your models in their effect on water. So that's an interesting question. And we also have a person who's willing to come live, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there she is.
Yes.
So she is not from wind and sun.
No, but that's another question that I
so
would like to be
let's start
answered later.
first with, tell us, who are you? You're live in the show now.
Hi, my name is Rose. I am a student at the University of Delft, and I'm also working for Global Drinking Water, which is a program that, it's all about drinking water, but mainly in the Global South. And in my study, I learned a lot about the quality of the water, and I'm wondering how you, want to measure the quality that is coming down on the roofs that you eventually want to reuse for showering. And I was also wondering, are you going to clean that like with a nature-based solution, because you wanted to do it in the different basins? So I was wondering.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tom?
Yeah, now it's getting a bit technical, so actually I need
You need the Royal Haskoning now.
Of my friends from Royal Haskoning. But what I learned from them is that there is also, again, a quite easy ways to measure the quality of the water, and then you measure if certain materials that might be dangerous are there in the water. So that's pretty well doable. And the filtering, there is natural ways to filter by plants, for example. That is interesting, of course, but those take a lot of space because the water has to go through them for quite a long time to become clean. That space should be there. In the end, we didn't use that for our model because we didn't have that much space. There's also installations that can help filtering the water, and those installations can also easily be installed in this landscape plan. So,
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you for joining us live. And then the question, Marjolein, about the wind and the sun.
Yeah, because they have an effect on water, if I understood correctly from the question. So how do you incorporate those
I don't get this influenced by, but of course you can do. This is about making our society more sustainable, and if you introduce also sunlight and wind in the models, then we make bigger steps into towards a society, more sustainable society. But this already is quite experimental, I would say. So, of course, it's fantastic to combine this with other techniques.
Yeah, but sun and wind is actually the next level.
Yeah. Once again, I'm saying we have to find the right client as designers that wants that will ask us to.
Yeah, because is it very expensive to do projects like this?
I think
I would say it's a yes.
We had 3 scenarios. So the small scenario is not expensive, and the interesting thing is this was quite an old building that is about to be renovated, and you can easily introduce
you have a win-win.
You can easily combine this with a normal renovation.
Yeah. So if you're going to renovate, do it like this because
exactly.
You have to do it anyway.
It's easy to do. If you have to put more insulation on your roof, do it in a clever way so that you can collect.
So it is expensive, but if you combine it with the renovation, it's profitable.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Okay, let's see if there. One other question.
Yeah, sorry, I have a very interesting one on Zoom again. I'm sorry. Could we get Robert Jan live?
Robert Jan live. Yes, Robert, you're in the show, so tell us your question.
Hi, I'm a researcher at the University of Twente. And my question for Tom is, you mentioned that there's a 85% reduction of tap water in your presentation. And how much of that percentage could we say that is basically absolute in a sense that is a direct reduction, and also how much is then still dependent on behavior change? So how the people living there are going to use water?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's I cannot answer that directly because I don't have the numbers in front of me. But what is part of this techniques is also part of this model is also techniques to reduce the use of water at all. For example, you can also flush your toilets with less water, if you use the right installation for that. So in that way, the reduction of water use is also part of this model, but I don't know exactly the balance between those numbers.
Because maybe you are a student, what do you get in your education? Is there enough attention for behavioral changes and what actually humans are doing?
Yes, of course, yes. I'm now a researcher, but I did industrial design engineering also at the University of Twente. And yes, part of our education is definitely focused on behavior change, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here knows that behavior change is one of the most difficult things to achieve.
Yes.
So that's also why I'm asking.
Exactly. And what do you think? What is the percentage?
I don't know, and I'm just not necessarily focused on the actual percentage here. I'm just focused on, my question focused on, is it really already a direct reduction? Is this really beneficial regardless of behavior change, or does it really hinge on it or not?
I would say the change of behavior is not really part of our model. So of course, with this toilet flushing techniques, yes, we reduce the amount of water that's used, but this model is not about reduction of use.
So the 85% can be actually achieved without behavioral change.
Yeah.
The technical installation is enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, last question from our audience live at the FNR. Yes, Sven is coming with the microphone.
My name is Nathalie Gagnon. I am an environmental educator. I really like to hear about those technical project, architectural projects. But I think a winning formula is when you involve people, the people you're talking about living in those social housing, when you have an educational program with them, for example, to learn them how to do community gardening on the roof, or to brush their teeth by stopping the tap meanwhile they brush, and then, it's little things, but this is how they will understand it, and they will feel concerned, and they will want to make their little action in this big problem, which is the water.
Yeah. So actually, this is a recommendation.
Yeah, recommendation. I
Yeah,
think it
totally-
would
I
be
totally
a more
agree with
global
that.
project.
Yeah.
And because you say the people here, these type of people may not understand, but if you have an educational program, so they understand the cycle of water, the cost of water, they're more involved. And also the green roof is very interesting. And community gardening is proven to bind people together, and they work for a same aim.
Yeah, definitely. No, I totally agree with you. What we try to do as designers to express what we did in our design. So we also really wanted to look those buildings different than they look now, after this transformation, so that people can also see what it is about. It's not only a story, but they can also experience it and see it every day.
Yeah. So thank you very much for your suggestion. Very important, because we are running out of time. Our time's actually finished. But one tip: I'm a mother of 3 children, and I love playing with water. So if you make those water buffers, make sure that there are enough, exploring things for kids, because they love water. Kids love water.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, give him a big hand, Tom Bergevoet. Thank you very much. Because, what's happening now in the world of research? That's our second theme. And I will talk with Pim de Jager, PhD'er from Wageningen University and Wageningen Research, and Professor Huub Rijnaarts, also from Wageningen University and Research. And he will join us by Zoom. Yes, Pim. Well, actually, the desk is getting cleaned, and is cleaned already. Welcome at Drive 2020, and also the professor live with us by Zoom. Also, welcome. Well, first of all, Pim, you're actually conducting an inventory of research for the 4 TU universities, the 4 TU Federation.
Correct.
4 technical universities together, about the regulation of the availability of drinking water. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, so as an inventory for the water system as a whole. So the idea here is that we've been asked by Design United, represented by the 4 TUs, as well as the Water Embassy, present later today, to make an inventory of the water system of the Netherlands as a whole. We are started here to do that here in Brabant, mainly the waterboard, the Dommel, as well as the AM Maas. And the goal of this inventory is to form a basis for the creative industry, the creative researchers, to see where they can contribute. And on our end, I'm more on the technical side of things, to indicate where on the technical side the issues, the pressing issues are.
Yeah, and what can you share with us about that research so far?
Yeah, so I have a couple of pictures that I wanted to show you to give a brief overview of how far we are. We've only been working on this for a couple of weeks now. I do this work together with 2 young researchers, one in Delft and one in Wageningen, where I'm also from. So I don't know if we can get those
yes, you
pictures
got the
up.
clicker. You can use it yourself.
And I click the professor away.
No, you won't.
Oh,
he's still with us.
Yeah. So these are just some of the pictures that we found in our inventory that I wanted to show with you, and I'm really hoping that also later we have a interactive discussion with the audience to show where the interest is.
Yes. So what do we see?
So what do we see here? This is a picture of the relation between the surface water and the groundwater, and what we can actually see is that most of the water that is used in society is actually not groundwater, but it's mostly surface water. Is it working? Oh.
So you call it surface water instead of tap water?
Yeah. So we're looking at the water system as a whole. So we have groundwater, it's pretty obvious. We have surface water, so this is water in the rivers, in the streams.
Okay.
We have atmospheric water, so precipitation, rainfall. At some moment we extract from these different sources, we treat it, we make usually drinking water out of it, but water can also be used in agriculture. It has a different quality. It can be used in industry, another different quality. Is then being used by all these different sectors in society, and is then being treated or discharged directly. And all of this, and then in the end, that loop is closed. So it's either discharged to other surface water bodies, or it's discharged and then infiltrated into the groundwater again. And we're trying to interlink these different water streams, but also make an inventory of the different actors that
Using that water.
are using that water or have a role. I'm going to skip this one, but this I think is also an interesting one where we see that what we found is that most of the groundwater extraction is actually used for drinking water. So way more groundwater is used for drinking water by the drinking water companies than is used by agriculture and industry, what we see here. Another interesting aspect is if we use drinking water, we can see that most of the drinking water is being used is used for showering and for flushing the toilet. So that's going back to the previous speaker. It's a very relevant issue that we can deal with, and we can see actually very, very little of the drinking water that we use is actually used for drinking or preparing food.
So what is the percentage? I can't really see it. How much are we using for
That,
drinking?
that's how small it is. So it's less than 2%.
Okay, less than 2%.
We actually use for
Drinking.
for edibles. Yeah.
And cooking as well. Drinking and cooking is the same?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's in this case it's different, but they're the two mini pie pieces at the top. One of the reasons that this is possible is because the drinking water price in the Netherlands is very, very low. So we have a lot of drinking water, and there's very little incentive for people to care that they flush their toilet with drinking water quality. We also find these types of tables, not a very nice picture, but it is very interesting because it shows us, that's also one of the goals of our inventory, is to identify some target groups. So what we can see here, I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but in these types of tables you can identify some target groups where we can see that elderly people use a lot more water. We even see that if you distinguish between male and female, you see there's a 7-8 liter difference. And then we can try.
Who is using more, female or male?
Females are using more water.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Oops.
And the elderly people, you said.
Yeah, in general, they mostly because they go to the toilet more, it looks like, or they use older types of toilets with more flushing water.
Okay.
But this is something for me.
And they have a garden.
That could also be, yeah. So you can also distinguish between people that have a yard or people that live in an apartment. But it could be very useful also for designers, we think, because like this you can actually see how effective is your measure and how can you target certain groups to contribute the most. And this is also a very interesting one. I think we can see on the left, we see all the lines go down. So this is water use per household, but one goes up, and the one that goes up is for shower use. And then on the right, we see the willingness of Dutch people to make adjustments to their drinking water use. And then we see that the most people think that what they would like to do most is shower shorter.
Okay.
So most people are willing to shower shorter, but at the same time, that's actually the one that is increasing. So we're actually showering longer.
Yeah.
So it seems like there's also a discrepancy between what people think that they do or people want to do and what we are actually doing. And then I show.
And it's very easy to say, like, okay, I take.
But apparently harder to do.
Exactly. But that's not your field of specialism, behavioral change.
No, absolutely not. And that's what I'm hoping that we will also discuss today at the table. Like we would like to provide this basis, but together with the audience and all the other sectors here, the non-hard science, technical.
So you need more soft measures. You meet soft, like the behavioral experts on board.
I hope we meet each other here.
Yeah. So this is about the research so far. So let me also introduce the professor. Welcome also in Drive 2020, because Professor, you are actually looking more to the Dutch Delta faces enormous challenges in providing fresh water. What can you actually add to what Pim already told us?
Yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me, and good morning, everybody. So in the Netherlands, what we do already for centuries is managing the water from the perspective that we have a bit too much. So we have designed our delta in a way that we protect our delta against flooding with dikes and levees. And what we also do is that we want to get rid of the water as quickly as possible to prevent flooding inland. So we have good discharges of little rivers and canals and big rivers to the coast, and the whole system is designed to get rid of the water. And now the last decades we face this change of routes, and we are discovering that we not only need to think about getting rid of the water, but also to conserve the water and to contain it into the delta. And that needs a bit of a redesign of our water system and water infrastructure. And for this, we made an overall plan to do that. And maybe I provided a picture from a concept we developed together with a number of universities. So Eindhoven University, Delft University, Twente University, and others, how to create this water conservation on a local scale. Yeah, here's the picture. It's a kind of a pie, but it is mimicking a local environment in the Netherlands. And what we would like to do is to design the Netherlands in a way that on the local scale, the water is contained. So these ideas that have been presented this morning already on the housing and the architecture level is one thing, but we can also redesign our nature and city and our groundwater and surface water in a way that we contain the water in the system and don't let it go away to the sea. We have a number of technical things that needs to be included in this design, especially from how do you say that, a modern digital technology level. So how to use water flows and digital technology, information technology to better manage the water flows. Also to look at the quality of the water. And an important aspect is in the Netherlands, we have under our surface in the deeper ground, we have not only fresh water, but we have also salt water, brackish water, especially if we're getting close to the sea. This amount of water is quite a large amount. And until now, we did not use that water. We just said, okay, it is unuseful. But now with new technologies, also partly developed in Eindhoven, but also Twente and Delft and Wageningen, we have new technologies now that we can also very efficiently, energy efficiently treat that water and make that water available for different functions.
Yes.
So by this redesign, we want to also include the people and the organizations that are now already involved in the water cycle. So drinking water companies and the water board, so the DOMMEL and AMA's were mentioned, are presented also present here in this meeting. For instance, they can work together with us, with the science people, to redesign this and to contain the water in the local environment. And one of the most other important things is that we generate a lot of water and wastewater. And normally we treat that water and we dump it again in the river, and then it's flowing out of the country into the sea. And one of the ideas is to also use that wastewater and treat it with the most advanced technologies we have and bring it back into the system to or give it to agriculture for the farmers, or give it to nature conservation organizations to sustain their nature, the forest or the wetlands, and to give it to industry. And many of these organizations now use the water only once and not in a circular way. And we want to help to redesign the local environments to a circular water approach.
So, Professor, what I hear is actually that a lot of things are already happening, a lot of ideas, also a lot of technical solutions. But in Holland, we have specially organized the whole system of water around water boards. So isn't it mainly also a political choice how we actually deal with water, and less a technical or well, actually less a technical problem?
I think it is, so we have, how do you say that? We have the bits of the jigsaw, and we developed all these different bits, but we didn't made the jigsaw yet. So on a systemic niveau, and you're completely right that the water boards, but not only the water boards, also the drinking water companies, they manage, in fact, the water system in the Netherlands together with Rijkswaterstaat. So that is the Ministry of Infrastructure and Waterways, and also the provinces. They and on the municipalities on the local level. So you have all kind of different organizations that now need to start to work together.
Yeah, and what is needed for that change then?
Help them a bit further.
Because sorry for interrupting you, but what is needed to make that transformation, to make it happen? If you have to work together with so many different stakeholders, with so many parties.
It needs to have a joint approach to redesign this local water system. And I think the water boards and the drinking water companies already have been initiating quite some ideas. But what is now needed is that also the science disciplines we have in the Netherlands that are very good in water management and water technology are combined with also the design studies and the design expertise we have in the Netherlands, like here also in this workshop.
Yeah.
And then work together with these water managers to redesign the system as a whole, and not only looking at bits of
we already heard Pim. Pim, you already said it earlier that you really also need the design discipline to join to help you guys, the technical guys, in making perfect solutions. Mm-hmm. So what do you need from the designers world?
Yeah, what do we need? That is a hard. I can give you a nice example of where of how I think the design world can contribute in some examples in which it worked well. So I was involved in a project in the northern part of the Netherlands, in Sneek, where they did not so much regarding drinking water, but regarding wastewater. They treated the wastewater on a local scale, so within a large neighborhood, a couple of hundred houses at the time. And what happens normally with wastewater is the wastewater is collected in a sewage system. We call it flush and forget. People flush. It's being treated by a central wastewater treatment plant to a certain discharge limit, and then it's discharged into a river or a lake, like Huub said. We don't look at it again. We think we give it back to nature. If you want to do that in a circular way, there's alternatives that are technically possible. You can extract nutrients and energy and fresh water. There's also other initiatives like a water factory in Bilp, where they produce very clean water that can directly be reused. What they did there is that the treatment plant that they used was actually located in the middle of that neighborhood. And by smart design, they visualized that treatment plant. So there was a huge glass facade where all the people in the neighborhood could see that wastewater treatment plant. And they knew that that is where their poop and all their water went.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when they evaluated such a system, they saw that, because there's also very water efficient toilets that are installed in that project. So they expected, just as our previous speaker said, they expected a certain efficiency that was made, so a certain water use reduction by the households. But the actual water reduction was far exceeded that expectation. And the only explanation that they could give for that was the behavioral change that automatically happened because people knew what was going on.
Exactly, and because they knew, they could see it, it was actually working.
Correct.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions or maybe already contributions from the designers world. Marjolein.
Well, I have a remark from George, and he's saying, have a closer look at the experience of showering. Showering at the start of end of the day represents a Zen moment. So we could design alternatives for those moments. So there's a broader context and perspective. But also I'm myself really interested in what Anouk, for instance, is thinking about this. She's sitting in the back behind there, and
Anouk,
she's a designer.
She's a designer and also from the embassy. So maybe we can go to Anouk, but I also see here in live in the FNR someone who wants to add something. So Sven, can you come with the microphone? Is that possible? Or maybe you, first you run to this lady over here. She is from a water board. Maybe you can raise your hand. He can see you. Because you're from Dommelewaard, no? Yeah, waterboard, the Dommel. Yes, the microphone is coming.
Yeah, thank you. As addition to the behavioral change you mentioned, I remember the immunity to change from Harvard studies. And it shows that exactly what you were saying about the moment of showering, the experience of showering, that people don't tend to be able to make the changes they're committed to because they have unconscious other commitments, previous commitments that they are unable to let go if they don't make that explicit. So if you really want to make that behavioral change, you have to give them the motivation, what they can reach, but also show them what holds them back to make that change. So that's a really difficult thing about behavioral change, but there are really good developments made how to work with that. And also at the Embassy of Water, we try to, like the works of Bernhard, we try to look at what motivates people. So maybe it's really interesting for you to connect to that workings, because we are gaining a lot of information about these behaviors and what are people, what motivates them and what are they prepared to change in this way. So.
Okay, well, thank you, because maybe we can also go to Anouk. Sven, you have to run to the other side, because Anouk,
I have a mic. I don't know if it's on already.
Yes. Oh, you got a mic on.
I can speak,
great,
right?
great. Because Anouk, you are a designer.
Yes.
How can you help our technical staff, our technical guys, by making the change?
Well, actually, I initiated the Embassy of Water precisely for this reason. We have all these different companies that the professor talked about. We have Waterboard, the Dommel, the community of the municipality of Eindhoven and the province of Noord-Brabant, and also Brabant Water. Together, actually the whole water chain is a partner in this Embassy of Water. And we connect them with designers, this year with social designers, to make that connection with users. And now this year, for the first time, also with ClickNL and the research of PIM, that we can connect all these things together.
Yes, so actually the Embassy of Water is the place to be. Pim, do you know the Embassy of Water actually?
I know them well, only since 3 weeks, but we have weekly contact, so I'm starting to know them better and better.
Okay,
we talk every week to see what the researchers have found. They're in. They have been asked by the Embassy of Water to do this research, or to collect basically all the research that there is. So all the partners in the Embassy of Water have different research, but we're putting it all together to see if we can find the spaces where they can work together more.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your contribution, and Pim, and of course Professor Rijnaarts, thank you for joining us and exploring what the research is about, inventory research. And for all the people back home, we have a little break now, but please, if you want to add something, or you want to give suggestions to Pim, how social design or design can contribute to this transition, do so. And there's also a poll, so we come back to you in 10 minutes, and we hope to collect a lot of ideas and inspirations. See you back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Yes, welcome back to the second half of Drive 2020 about water. We ended actually with a poll question.
Yes.
Marjolein, what is the outcome of the poll?
Well, to be honest, I received some well-deserved critics on my criticism.
Maybe
of my poll.
can you repeat the poll question also
Yes.
for the audience here live?
So I asked them, what do you think? When we talk about water, you see A, many opportunities but no commissioners. B, some opportunities, but this is not really my subject. And C, no opportunities, but isn't this more a technological issue? And basically everyone said A, there are so many opportunities but no commissioners. But then I also got some criticism that said like, okay, but this is a bit iffy, this poll. So okay, fair enough. But I think they see a lot of opportunities. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So
but no commissioners.
Yes.
Does anybody know here in the audience how can we get more commissioners for this project? Maybe Dan, do you have a suggestion? No, Dan is actually not really. No, and Bart? Maybe with the mic? Because designers, they want to make the transition, the technical world, the research world, everybody wants to, but...
Yeah, well, I think the challenge is coming from all these different parties, looking towards designers. I think we have to make a change, and I see a lot of designers making that change already from being sort of depending on commissioners towards becoming a partner and taking initiative. And of course...
It is very reactive, actually.
Yeah. That used to be a bit, and I don't want to accuse any designers of being too lazy, but of course that's the traditional behavior of a designer is to sort of sit back and say, okay, give me an assignment. But what you see nowadays is that, and especially the embassies, is what they are doing is to turn that around and say, okay, we have a challenge and we want to do something on it.
Yes, we have challenge, but we also have knowledge that the world is waiting for.
Yeah. But it all has to come together in a public-private collaboration, and that's what we try to build, either small or big. And of course, the limitation in there is always money. But we have some starting money for that. So I noted it already down that we should look for an opportunity in there.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Marjolein, and also, of course, for the people back home. Please. Continue giving us your suggestions and your questions, because we go on to our third team, and that is what's happening now in the world of the design embassies. Every day at Drive, we work together with one of the embassies of the world design embassies. And these embassies for the future are alliances for partners working on social challenges. And together with designers, they work on solutions and they develop new perspectives for the world of tomorrow. And today, we work together with the Embassy of Water to find out what they're up to. And we already heard a little of the embassies, but representing the Embassy of Water are Anouk van der Pol, Anne van Strien and Bernhard Lenger. Anouk, welcome here at the table. You actually came with two other colleagues,
yes.
But you will introduce them very shortly. But first of all, what's actually happening in the Embassy of Water, and what is the Embassy of Water?
Well, like I already spoke about a little bit earlier, is we have these partners of the whole water chain in the Embassy of Water, so Waterboard de Dommel and Eindhoven, Noord-Brabant and Brabant Water, the water company. And we work together with designers. I think we've talked about this the whole morning already, that we need designers to make also the connection with users. Because we really need to make this change and this water transition actually to face these problems with climate change. And I think I need to address also the urgency of it all, because we talk about how can we address this problem and what can we do, and do we need designers to step up, or do we need an assignment first, or do we need people to be aware first, or can we just make these buildings and then see how people react to it? There's a lot of waiting, I feel, and
we don't have time to wait anymore.
No, if we look at Greta Thunberg and her climate change approach, our houses are on fire, is what she's saying, and
but nobody knows.
Nobody knows, and in water, we really need big changes. And what I find very interesting is also to look more at these changes from a water perspective. We talk about water as a product and something we can manage and something that we can own.
And we can use.
But if we really want to make this water transition work, I think we need to look at water as like a living element again. And therefore, at this design project that we did with Bernhard Lenger and Anne van Strien, I also asked water itself to be one of the partners. That was Kees Kamp, also sitting here.
So Kees Kamp, you're representing water.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's the voice of water.
He's the voice of water.
He keeps us sharp in saying, you're talking about water as a product again. Come on.
Okay, so we come back to you later on to ask the water what water thinks of the meeting, actually. But this is your goal, or this is the goal of the embassy. And you brought two colleagues, two designers, actually.
Yes.
What are they going to talk about?
Well, Bernhard Lenger is a social designer who is looking at, he did some research first, of course, and he noticed that users don't have a role in our whole water system. You have the water chain and all these different partners, and they all have a role. But we, as people, we don't have a role. And then he thought, can we give users a role by letting them take care of water, and he designed a special concept for that.
Okay, so we will hear that later on. And Anne.
And Anne, she was really intrigued by this whole giving water a voice idea. So she asked other people who are also, they know everything about water, and she asked them in a series of podcasts that she interviewed them. And she distilled these ideas from it that we can use in our future work to take water more into account.
Okay, well, then I suggest that we are going to listen to Anne van Strien, what the voice of what water actually is telling us. Anne van Strien, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the water, actually, to provide me with its wisdom to be able to develop this project. So thank you very much, water. I highly appreciate your wisdom. And we use water in many different ways. We cook with it, we wash with it, we flush water away, so to speak. So it's many different ways of using, but do we actually really see the water? Do we actually really see you in your purifying power that you contain? Do we actually really see the living entity that you are? And do we actually really see the way you give life to every being on this planet, every animal, every plant, and every human being? Or do we just use you? So this was my starting question to make this series of podcasts named Listening to the Voice of Water, or in Dutch, Luisteren naar de stem van water. And Anouk already introduced it, that through Kees we understood deeply that water has a voice, and there's no time anymore to not listen to this voice. Water is a connecting entity on this planet, and we interact with it every day. We let it stream through our bodies. It keeps us alive. It purifies us. So in a series of podcasts, I interviewed 4 people that I found profoundly wise in their view on water and important to listen to for the future of how we interact with water. And this was Connie van Rooij van Waterschap de Dommel, Eva van Strien and Kim Hemmes, the water ambassadors of last year. Kees Kamp from The Voice of Water, Wat is Water, and Monique Driessen, she's doing her PhD research currently on the University of Gothenburg in Sweden. And with this way of contemplating about the essence of water, I went to set out on an explorative journey to really get to know and to unravel, to unfold this wisdom that water is. And through these series of podcasts, I distilled 9 drops of consciousness to really give us a new water consciousness that can help us to interact with water from today. And what this consciousness is, it's actually a very old consciousness that our body might already have, but our minds have yet forgotten. So it is our task to really remember this wisdom that we as human beings hold in our bodies, in our souls, and really reconnect with the essence of water again. So what I find important to share here is about the 9 drops of consciousness, a few of these drops. And one of the most important that is really close to me was one that I spoke about with Connie. And it's about standing rock, the water wisdom of the elders that have spoken to us a few years ago. And they expressed to us the deep consciousness that water is a source of life, and it's not a resource. It's not a resource that we can only use, but it's really the essence of life. And once we open our consciousness to this understanding, I believe the way which we interact with water, the activities, the usage will automatically or naturally, better said, change. And also, in this way, the change that we are in, the transition that we are moving from a linear way of understanding to a circular way of understanding. So not only a circular way of handling the water, but also a circular understanding that our essence and the essence of the planet, if you look at the way it is shaped, it's a circular entity, and it's a closed system. And there's many drops of water in this closed system, but never one will fall off. And you can see the way the earth is going right now at the way the water is currently behaving, and the containment of the water, the state of the water. So in this way we can move also from the question, what do we want to do, to the question, who do we want to be? And I think this shines light on a profound shift in the way we look at ourselves in the world. So our worldview, it's not anymore we as a human species are central in this planet. We as a human species dominate, or we have to control. No, it's honoring the water for the life-giving capacity that it holds and its sacredness with that. Because if we contaminate the water only, soon we will not be able to live anymore. So this consciousness is not only an understanding in my brain, but it's really an understanding in my heart. And this was the way, the frequency with which I wanted to interact with the people I spoke with in my podcast. And in the last episode, number 6, I speak to the water directly, and I thank the water for its alchemical capacity to to bring life again, and the way when we touch water, as you see in this picture, its nature is circular, and it's just a remembrance to us. It's just for us to remind its circular nature and the way we have to interact with it. So the titles of the podcast, the first one was about deep listening, also the water within us. This one was done with Eva and Kim. The second one was Stories Written by Water, the walk that Monique Driessen did through the city of Mexico, in which she talked with Don Anastasio, who showed them the fountain of water that can be found on the mountain that they inhabit inhabit the mountain with the Aztec name Tlaloc, which is the god of not only water but also fertility. So you see in these old cultures that there already was this deep understanding that water is not only an entity that we can use, but it is the source of life. The third one was space for regeneration, and this word for me is key. It's not anymore, in my understanding, about sustainability. It's about the capacity to regenerate. It's about bringing back the natural balance that the planet of where we inhabit is, its deep essence is natural balance. And the last one with case was vital water, the understanding that water can be either dead or alive, and this is what brings us also alive. So remembering this water wisdom, that was the goal of this podcast. You can listen on it on SoundCloud, you can listen to it through the website of the World Design Embassies, and may this be the essence of the message to water.
Thank you, Anne. And you actually you give the hand now to Bernhard. Bernhard van Lenger, yes. We'll give them both the hand.
Hi, thank you. Let's see. Hi, my name is Bernhard Lenger. I'm a social designer, and what I do as a social designer is I combine scientific knowledge with the experience of people, and then design around this some sort of outcome. It always changes, which empowers people to take action. When I looked at the water issue, I was quite fascinated by that we look at water as a product, that we see it as a service which is delivered to us, and which of course makes the water quality great. It brings convenience, but it also relocates responsibility. While making water a service, you don't see yourself responsible for the water surrounding you. So the person who's living next to a lake doesn't feel responsible for cleaning that lake because it's the responsibility of the municipality, for example, or some water company. What I think is quite important if we talk about transitioning of like how we will deal with water is to transition away from water as a service and a product, something commercial, but water as something which is always with us. Water as something which we have to care for. I mean, 70% of our bodies is water, and we don't want to sell it, we want to take care of it. And water is quite an interesting thing because it's there from the beginning of the life till the end of your life. So it is nearly like a companion which is there, like a friend, like something which you know you always can rely on. And with this idea, I started to design the water animals. And the water animals, it's a campaign which allows you to understand what your role, what your possibilities are within the movement which we are in the movement of dealing with water differently. And what I did there together with an illustrator called Mariska Lamois, she helped me to illustrate 8 animals, 8 water animals, which help you to understand what you can actually do. And I want to start with the smallest one. It's the water hamster. So the water hamster is a very easy animal. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's there in its little environment. It eats when it eats, and everything's fine. And what the water hamster loves the most to do is to run in its little wheel. And when it runs in its little wheel, it pumps water through the pipes. So you have to imagine you have a hamster in your system. And how do you take care of a hamster in your system, the water hamster? It's a very simple thing which all of us can do actually. It's just imagine if you turn up the tap completely on full strength, nowadays especially because we have to wash our hands because of Corona. You turn it up completely so the hamster has to run and run and run and run, but that hamster will get tired if it has to do this all the time. So a very easy way to take care of the hamster is to just open it a little bit so that you have enough water to wash your hands, but the hamster doesn't get exhausted. So the next animal which I want to introduce to you is the water cat. Now, the water cat, it's for all us lazy caregivers. Everybody who says, we don't have time, we don't know really we don't know what to do, but it's similar to a cat. The cat will just do whatever it wants to do. It will eat when it wants. You just have to make sure there's food, otherwise it's going to meow. And the best thing is to install a cat door so that it can go outside and inside. And a quite interesting thing is about it that also you can do this for water. There is a very fun intervention which I heard, which they do quite often I heard it that it happens in California in the US. They just take a brick, so a stone, and they put it in the water reservoir of the toilet. And just by, reducing the quantity of water you will flush every time when you go to the bathroom, you already take care of water, so you already take care of the water cat. And the next animal, it becomes bigger. It is the water rhinoceros. So you have to imagine, how do you take care of a water rhinoceros? That's such a big animal, where maybe alone as a person, you don't know if you can do it, but you can see around if other people want to help you to take care of this rhinoceros. So the water rhinoceros, the story around the water rhinoceros is that it loves the city. It loves to walk through it, but what happens when it walks through it, it's a very heavy animal. It will move the tiles, and it cannot roll in the ground to control its body temperature. So the water rhinoceros is just like very unhappy in the city, but it just really loves it. So what we should do is to make our streets and our cities water rhinoceros friendly. So look at your street, what you can do. You can, for example, come together with your neighbors and see, are there green surfaces where we could make a water rhinoceros park? Is there possibility for a water rhinoceros to visit our street? And by bounding up together, you can see what you can do then. And the last one, which is one of my absolute favorite ones, is the water whale. Now, imagine yourself taking care of a whale. That's nearly an impossible task. And the water whale, well, it really wants to be with us on land because we made it such a beautiful country in the Netherlands and all these wonderful things which we do. But if the water whale comes to us on land, it's not good for the whale and it's not good for us. So the water whale will be stranded and we will be just drowning in the water which the water whale brings with him. So how do we take care of such a big animal? That is pretty much that we have to bound together as organizations, as people, to make sure the water whale stays where he's happiest, in the sea. And in total, I designed 8 of these animals together with Mariska. And you can find them, all of them, on the website waterdier.nl. The website is in English as well. And you can find it through the Water Embassy website. And what is quite interesting about these animals, and that's something which is in the power of stories, is if you compare the whale to climate change. It is impossible for us as individuals to imagine what we can do for climate change. But once you break it down in pieces of stories, and you see where you can abstractly take care of a whale, for example, you also see what you can do for such an issue as climate change, for example. So that's the water animals. On the website, you can find also a quiz if you are not sure what animal you can take care of, and you can adopt one where afterwards we will send you a water animal care package. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Yes. Well, Bernhard, join us here at the table. We have some minutes, not too many minutes more, but for some questions. But first of all, Bernhard, when are you going to work together with the Albert Heijn or with the Jumbo, so we can collect those animals because they're so nice and sweet and.
We will have to first talk about values, I think, before I would work together with Albert Heijn. Well, approach me and we can see what we can make. I think the importance is to bring out the story of water and really to listen to water, because what Anna and Kees, for example, do, they bring a voice, and I'd like to try to bring a face to water.
But now you're saying first we have to talk about values, for example, the Albert Heijn, but it's also a very urgent question. So you need a broader public for adopting those animals and adopting your message. So you're also very principled.
Yeah, but I think that's maybe me as an idealist, that I just really would like to be works implemented in the correct way. So I think if Albert Heijn agrees to saying like putting this as a first issue, but not only as a commercial and a campaign for marketing, but really looks into the system of how they run, then I think I'm very much willing to work with them.
Okay, but you got your how to say that?
I got my ground rules.
Your conditions.
You cannot use design as greenwashing. I think that's just really not the good way to go. You have to look at your organization and see how you can change from within.
Yeah. Because let's go to the voice of water. Kees, you're not Kees anymore, but you're now the voice of water. So, what is the water actually saying about this meeting? I mean, how are you?
I'm quiet basically all the time. What I see is that water is actually being heard and is confronting humanity with the way it's working. And like Anna was saying, we need to approach this from a higher, it could be a circular level, but it confronts us like we heard, we need to cooperate, but then we realize there's so many pillars in the whole strain of cooperation that need to work together, that actually water is in this moment pushing the limits of our system, and we have to work at another level in the existing system.
Yes, but how can you overcome then your own ego or your own conditions or your own view of where the world has to go? Because
well, the interesting thing is that I realized that this was what happened in the preparation for in the talks we had together, that these were the questions that were actually asked in the meetings from how do we do this? And by starting to talk, it was like there was the whole level in the meeting changed. There was actually another language developing. So it is by cooperation and by leaving our known grounds and by not defending our own organization, but starting to say, okay, this is what I need. And just by speaking somebody's needs, others could really react to it, and then the need changed.
Okay.
So and that is leaving what I call leaving existing grounds.
Yes.
For the sake of the better.
And starting the dialogue or starting the conversation.
Yeah, without knowing where it's going.
Without knowing where it's going. But it's water. Water floats everywhere, isn't it?
It always goes down.
It always goes down. Okay. Well, let's see if there are any questions from our audience back home. Marjolein.
Well, I have quite an interesting one, if I may say so. It is when the value of water and our relationship with it changes for us. How will this affect the way it is provided to us, and what does it mean for changes within the institutionalized water system?
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a long question.
It's a long question.
Okay, who feels free to answer?
Anna, maybe?
I
don't know
can,
if it connects with your podcast.
Say something with it, about it. It's a deep question, I would say. What I mean with that is that it's a broad complexity of many different levels that has to kind of rewire first before it can wire in a new way. In our previous conversations, we were talking about a ship that basically has to redirect its direction, and if it doesn't do, we know from the Titanic it will it might hit an ice mountain, and it will be upside down soon. So with that, the urgency I cannot more underline. But how this will work in practice? Well, first, I think we should definitely ask ourselves the question, instead of what do we want to do, who do we want to be? I think that's the foundational question that we cannot overlook. And then from those new insights that we will gain, basically through asking ourselves this question and also each other, we will gain a new understanding what our role is in the totality of things. Because now we have seen that over the past decades, organizations and institutions might see themselves as a separate entity. Not everyone, of course, but we move towards an era in which we will see that just like an ecosystem, all the parts are basically connected to each other as a whole. And from that, the new understanding can rise. And for example, if we look at the water sanitation system, the way it is designed right now, it is processed in a very linear way. We flush away the water, but it's not actually away. It's just out of our sight. And for example, the project Anthroponics, which is also discussed in the podcast, This is a way of understanding that we, through our urine, we either contaminate the water or we enrich it with our nutrients. So, but also these nutrients, these are the three most important nutrients for plants to grow. So in this way, we can see that plants can actually grow on our human urine, and in that way we can produce food. Of course, it cannot be contaminated by medicine, but also in that way we become aware that the medicine that we take, question one, is it actually does it actually make us more healthy? Question two is, what does it provoke in the water?
In the water system, yes.
Exactly, with possible ecological effects in places that we don't see it, such as fish that birth in a way that they are not either feminine or masculine anymore.
So water actually it's everywhere. It affects everything. My last question, because we have to end this part of the program, is actually. Because you want to, if you really want to create that transition, you really need a broad public. You need all disciplines being on board, but also the consumers. So what are you going to do, the three of you, to actually make that gap smaller? So to bring everyone on board, because we cannot afford to let it only be let it be with you guys, a small part of society who really feels that there's something needed. So how can we make this message bigger?
If I may.
Anouk, yes.
I often feel when we were talking with all the partners of the different water companies, we're often talking about those people. But of course, we are those people ourselves. And if we realize that sometimes, and I think that goes for everyone in the field of research, in the field of design, in the field of government, we're talking about water and it's inside of us and we use it, and so we are those users. So if we can make changes like Kees Kamp said, when we talk about taking this element of water into consideration in how we work and how we act, then we're already doing it, and then it can spread, and then it can, continue.
Yes. So don't talk about we are the water. Actually.
Yeah, exactly. Like also the professor talked about this jigsaw puzzle, and water needs to be in that puzzle. So, and I think,
and it is in the puzzle. It's everywhere, actually. In us here, we drink it.
Exactly.
Well, actually, thank you very much for your inspiring talks and your explanation. Give them a hand, Anouk, Anne, and Bernhard. Thank you.
Thank you.
En jullie mogen van tafel. Ja. Yes, because we move on to our last theme of today's drive about water, and that is what will be happening in future research. What knowledge will be developed, and what knowledge do we need in order to design better and to make better designs? René Kemp, I will talk with René Kemp, a Professor Innovation and Sustainable Development at the Maastricht Sustainability Institute, and Geke van Dijk, co-founder of design research bureau STBY, and she will be with us with Zoom. Yes, Professor Kemp, welcome, and also Geke van Dijk. Hi, you're live from London, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, well, great having you also here in our show. Well, I'll start with the professor, Professor Kemp. You're working on a new research, which have recently started. It's actually funded from the call Transition and Behavior from our NWO, our Dutch research organization. And in the next coming 4 years, you are going to work on a big research. It's a very complicated title, so I give you the honor to pronounce that title for us.
Okay, well, the acronym is TransB, so I'll
oh, that's easy.
And it's about the recursive relationship between transitions and behavior. Actually, we try to avoid the word behavior. We actually think practice is a better term. But what we do in the project, well, the project is a social science project, And in the project, we study and support projects of co-creation in which the water sector is involved to deal with water sort of issues. But they are approached in a different way because also other challenges are being considered, in particular the climate emergency challenge of becoming carbon neutral, the circularity challenge, and also the challenge of, that society also, doesn't want to be told what to do and what to accept.
Yes, actually all our challenges are incorporated in that research.
Yes, and perhaps so they're kind of co-optimized. Now you may think, well, doesn't that complicate things?
Yes, that's what was my question.
Yeah. Well, there's a famous statement by Eisenhower when he was president, which is that if you cannot solve a problem, you have to enlarge it. And that's exactly what's being done. And it works a bit like this. If you also considered, climate, carbon issues, carbon reduction issues, you also can bring in other actors and other funds into a project. Same with circularity and with citizens. Well, the best way indeed to actually to deal with citizens is to listen to them. And that's what we're doing in 4 co-creation projects, one in Amsterdam, one in Helmond, which is close to here, Brainport Smart District, one in Kerkrade, and another one in Limburg, Horst aan de Maas.
Horst aan de Maas, yes, because it is complicated, but on the other hand, what we already heard today here with our speakers and our audience, that mainly it comes up to the easy fact that it's all about behavior. It's all about willingness. We have the technical knowledge. We have the designers ready to design. But it's more about who is going to pay for it. Are we actually able to work together and to listen to each other?
Well, all these things matter, so everyone can see the importance of creativity. To that, I would add there's also an importance of sensitivity in considering other people's needs and perspectives. And when you say behavior, we want to use the word practice. People do practices. They're actually carriers of practices.
So why don't you want to use the word behavior?
Well, because a practice, refers to something habitual and something that you're capable of doing and something that you not always reflect on. And we just heard about consciousness. Now, I think, if you, in a partnership, you also can create another type of consciousness in which people's roles and way of thinking can change. Now, I'm saying this as a transition expert. It's actually, there's a field called transition studies. I'm one of the founders of that. And we know that in transition processes, a new normal emerges through technology, new institutions, and also new practices. And those practices, in order for them to happen, they have to be attractive. So one of the big challenges is to make this attractive for everyone, or at least for. And over time, you usually see that indeed you move to a new normal. And so we're also looking at the context of these projects and how that's facilitating or actually creating problems. And if the context is creating problems, you also need to address actors who might do something about it.
Yes.
Such as government.
Okay, well, thank you for this explanation. Geke, you are the co-founder of Design and Research Bureau STBY, and also actually specialist in consumer behavior research and human-computer interaction. In what way can this kind of research, can this contribute to your field work?
I'd say it's all connected, and you hear that in every contribution this morning. I get quite excited, I must say, because you can hear in everybody presenting their work that they work on, that they say actually the topic at hand is much larger, much more complex. So we're looking at a part of the puzzle. So that was very interesting, the mention of the jigsaw puzzle. And I think we see that in our work as well. So we've worked on several projects over the past years, but always on a part of the jigsaw puzzle. Sometimes with consumers, then it might be about behavior, but also about awareness and understanding. Sometimes with farmers, for instance, and water companies. But we always find that in a project, and I guess all the academics and designers here will recognize that, you always find that, yes, you can make some contributions, you can make a small step forward, but you can't solve everything, and you can't take everything into account. And in that sense, I'm getting very happy with the conversations, because I think as much as water is an ecosystem, and we need that holistic understanding, we are also an ecosystem, as was just stressed by the last speaker, or
Yes,
speaker in the
embassy,
unit
the embassy
before.
of water.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So we are part of that, and that means we are in the picture, and together we can make progress by making small steps.
Yes, but how are you working then? Because you are the specialist in making things work and bringing all those different interests together. So so what is your key advice?
Both, I think, to look at the balance between taking into account the complexity and the bigger picture, but also really push in a project to see what can we do here. Maybe we can't solve everything, but at least we can make some progress by changing something. So maybe an example, just very briefly, and it's not about the details, but we did a project for a water company, Vitens. They asked us to look at relationships with farmers, and it's about quality of water and quantity of water, and they're both responsible for it. And yes, you can find things where things can be improved, but then you often easily find that nature is also part of it. Regulation is part of it. The weather is a stakeholder. Consumers are a stakeholder. So the awareness in your projects that you're looking at just a part of a bigger picture. And that is interesting, I think, for all of us together to move forward. If we're talking about future, that we know that we are trying to solve small steps in a big puzzle, but together we can move forward as long as we realize that the picture is bigger than just our project, so that we don't make it big truth that exclude other projects, but look at not either or, but and how it all ends up.
Yes, and so it starts with small steps, but we also have the bigger picture. And is it also, Professor, about vocabulary? So the way we talk, do we understand each other? I mean, is that also part of your research? Or how can we actually?
Yes, we're using a middle range theory approach in which allows for collaboration with the water sector, with practitioners, as we call them. So you use words that, and we're all sensitive. So if a word doesn't work well, like sustainability, perhaps that's too abstract, doesn't, no.
But I can, for
we
example,
avoid it.
Yeah, because I can imagine. I love the story of Anne, but if you talk about honoring water and the water as your companion, that maybe the technical experts that they think honoring water, that is actually not the way I talk about water. So is it also part of your research how we can actually integrate?
Yeah, well, we're not social scientists, we're not social engineers, but we try to understand the complexity, and practices are very much connected. I mean, I live here in Maastricht, and then we have a shared garden, which we have to take care of now, so twice a year. Now this is hard work, but it's also something social that you're doing and enjoyable. And well, we also bought a big barrel, I can proudly say now. My wife bought it, which is now sort of being installed. So there is an issue of attribution of meaning. Now, as social scientists, especially qualitative social science, we look into meanings, and we also don't think that people have fixed ideas and identities. I think that these can change.
Yes.
And that's something that we accept.
Yes. Geke, do you want to contribute something to that?
Yeah, we see that change over the years. We've done several water projects, and we see that people are, at first, like 5 years ago, we did the first one in Southeast England here, and people were not very aware of a quantity of water, for instance, that they were using, and also how you constitute quality. now if we do projects, there people are much more aware. So it's becoming more and more into our lives. But it's sometimes difficult. You don't have the services to know, like the discussion before about the showers. It was somehow implied there's a lot of water used in the showers. It must be about time. People are long in the shower.
Yeah.
We are finding in the research, it's probably about the products. You have these rain showers.
Yes.
They, in 1 minute, so much water is coming out. And it's being sold as something very fancy. So people aspire to it, but they don't realize that actually is harming the outcome of the use. So that's where, let's say, the more technical research and the social research can inform each other to double check those assumptions and to see what actually constitutes these practices.
Yes, and then we also have the commercial interest brought in. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's part of it as well. So I would say you would have to work with those stakeholders as well to see, because if not all the stakeholders in the ecosystem move forward in this transition, it's really difficult to get progress.
Yes. Okay, let's see if there are any questions from our audience here at the Evenaar and also back home. Marjolein, do you have questions? Are there questions?
Well, no, people are just wondering, Geke, actually, what you thought about the previous talks. But I think...
I was very happy to hear so many different perspectives and initiatives, because this is very urgent. This is a climate emergency. We need to care about this. And to hear how much is happening and also how much awareness of how this all adds up and connects. And I think we probably people know, but it's just not in the program. It's important to also consider leisure. We did a project with WaterNet this summer, with What Design Can Do. And water is also swimming and enjoying the outside. And that's very connected to biodiversity. So the more we do it, of course, we love it. And it gives us joy, as one of the previous speakers said, and calms. So it's important to our mental health. But it also puts a big pressure on nature. So that's another complexity that we need to take into account. How can we balance that for ourselves, the positive effects, but also to mitigate the negative effects on nature? And that's a big concern for WaterNet.
It's a big concern also, so leisure, Professor?
Well, maybe well, to add to this, if, people are consumers, but they're also citizens, concerned citizens. So if you can address them as responsible citizens, they can do other things. Well, also use their garden. Well, don't put stones in their gardens, but actually make sure that also the garden is
it's
green.
a rhino. We have to take care of the rhino, the water rhino. That's what the water rhino wants.
Okay, well, yeah. So there is actually this can be utilized much more than currently is being done. And I think the problem often is also with the professionals who just think in a very sectorial way, which is less true for the water sector, I'm happy to say. But the energy companies, well, they're really about making money from energy. And when I say energy, it's either fossil fuel or it's something renewable.
Mm-hmm.
It's often not both.
Yeah, but isn't that view actually, if you think very monotyping of all those, like what Bernhard was saying about Albert Heijn or what you were saying about energy sector, it doesn't really sound cooperative.
No, but I think the secret of multiple value creation, that's this word that we use and the sector appears to like it, is that you have partnerships sort of behind that. Which are partners, which are kind of equals, not someone telling, you do this and this is what you get and so forth. Yeah. So if that's the basis, I think there's, there can be, this can be a source of change.
Okay, there is one question in the audience. So Sven, you're already there with the microphone.
My question is, how do you bring together all the stakeholders in your research? Because there are a lot of them and they're also cross-sectoral. How do you try to do that, to get them all together around the table?
Well, you invite people like social housing corporations, energy companies, the municipalities. You just invite them, and there's a lot of people in those organizations who are open to, well, a learning project. You know, it doesn't mean that you immediately will, that this ultimate will,
but that are the parties that are willing, but do you also
yes, you have
reach?
to work with the willing. Now, actually, you could also indeed try to involve people who are critical. And actually, this is also something that we would like to do, because I think criticism also has a role to play.
And how are you going to do that?
Well, by inviting criticism.
Okay.
Or by asking people, well, let's be critical, because you were all polite and, you know, friendly to each other. Let's now be, you know, be as critical as possible.
Yeah, so it's going to be an inclusive research.
Yes, but yeah, but as transition nurses, we know that, you know, the world involves all kinds of interests and, you know, different needs. So you cannot sort of solve that problem. If it can never be solved, you have to work with it, and it cannot, and you need multiple steps. But in transition process, once you have a sort of, you have a long process in which something radical is being tried and further developed, but also if the circumstances change, then you get a momentum, and then suddenly, you know, there's, you know, everyone wants to be part of the solution rather than the problem. So it's these kind of dynamics that have been studied, and we'll be using that.
Yes, the research will take 4 years. Do you communicate during those 4 years with the field or at the end?
Well, we are not the researchers. We're just, you know, communicate at the end. No, there was constant interactions, and well, yesterday I published a blog. It's about the well, the idea for a Bauhaus initiative for building back a better Europe. So we were very open to interaction and communication. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish you a lot of luck for the coming 4 years. Geke, thank you very much for joining us from London.
Thank you. Good session.
And of course, the people here at the Evenaar, thank you for joining us today at the Drive Water. And the people back home, thank you for joining us. We hope that you will join us tomorrow as well, because tomorrow we talk about drive safety, about how to involve juveniles in their treatment and their influence on probation officers' practice. We will talk about the embassy of safety and about known research on the edge of subversion and design. So hope to see you tomorrow at Drive Safety. And don't forget to fill in the poll, because we like to know what you're going to remember of today. And I wish the voice of water, I wish all of us a lot of luck and straightforward. Thank you very much watching Drive 2020.